watching.
Subscribe.
Hello, you're watching ScreenStalker. I'm Elfagador Laurie Blake, and this is housemate Simon Longdon. And do you remember the game Anthem, Simon?
No.
Neither does anyone else. And you'll be forgiven for forgetting because Anthem has not had the best of starts since it launched in February this year. It was a bit of a critical and commercial flop, so much so that EA basically just forgot to really talk about it at E3 this year.
Well, they sort of apologised for it.
And considering some of the other, shall we say, newspeak that EA have been doing about their strategies and tactics and their surprise mechanics, CEO Andrew Wilson has been getting in on the action with an interview with Gamedaily.Biz that explained the reasons why Anthem flopped.
He said, "We brought together these two groups of players who were making this emotional value calculation on two different vectors. One was traditional BioWare story-driven content, and the other was this action-venture type content. About the 30 or 40 hour mark, they really had to come together and start working in on the elder game. At that point, everyone kind of went, oh, hang on a minute, now the calculation is off." That is a load of absolute nonsense.
I love the idea of saying, like, you're making an emotional value calculation on two different vectors, like some sort of HAL 3000 kind of robot.
This is someone who clearly has designed games based entirely on marketing tribes.
Yes.
So they're sat around wondering why all their tribes that they very cleverly come up with aren't interacting with each other. And it's because all that tribe stuff is generalities, initial ideas. What they've then gone and done is design an entire game based on that. And it was crap.
Well, I think the other issue is that here they're saying, like, we brought together these two groups of players who are making emotional value calculations on two different vectors. So it's our fault that we didn't understand that it's an action game and a story game at the same time. It's like, it's not hard to understand, it was just bloody boring. You take something like Destiny, which obviously Anthem is clearly modelled on, both in terms of what they, like the story side of it being like a sci-fi shooter with aliens, etc., and the structure side of it, which is clearly what they hoped the Anthem would become, was like the new Destiny, like a long tail game where you can do updates and release a full new game basically masquerading on top of the old game every year. However, the difference is Bungie are very good at shooting games. And Destiny at its core is a game in which the story and everything else is basically found by pumping bullets through, like, into stuff. People who are into BioWare games are expecting to talk to people and find out the story, probably try to bang the person, because that's all that happens in BioWare games. Like, BioWare's stock dropped after Mass Effect Andromeda, and then they released Anthem, which isn't even like a BioWare game. What did you expect was going to happen? Like, I get the fact that you don't want to tie people into just making the same thing forever. It's the same thing that happened to Hideo Kojima when he made Metal Gear Solid. All that happened was Konami were like, make more Metal Gear Solid. And he was like, no, please, no more Metal Gear Solid. And they were like, make more Metal Gear. And now he's doing Death Stranding and everyone's like, yeah, amazing. Like, it's nice to see him do something different-ish for once. I know you don't like it, but like...
I didn't say I didn't like it, but I will protest the idea that this is somehow some incredible new creative leap.
No, but it's at least like... It's at least
from Mr. Draw Tits and cardboard boxes.
At least it's him doing something slightly different. Explaining the inaccuracies in the vector calculation further, Andrew Wilson said, "It's off because I've got a friend who sits in this other category of player. They want to play the game a certain way. I want to play the game a certain way," meaning another way. "The promise was we can play together, and that's not working very well. Oh, by the way, I'm used to 100 hours of BioWare story, and that's not what I got." Or, "I expected that this game would have meaningfully advanced the action component that we'd seen in games like Destiny before, and I don't feel like it has."
See, that whole quote there, that tells you that from the very moment this game was being designed, the whole thing was destined to fail, because they fundamentally believe that there were these two separate kinds of gamers who could be brought together by a game that they were designing to be not quite either of their expectations.
Well, that's the thing, is like the idea behind Anthem seemed really cool. Like, the action seemed like a really cool idea. It's basically Iron Man simulator with shooting, but
BioWare and also robots where you had sort of weird dog legs.
Yeah, dogleg robots.
Yeah.
But BioWare have never been very good at making shooting games. Like, Mass Effect shooting is ropey.
Yeah.
And that is what carried Destiny.
But
Just having really satisfying guns to shoot, even when the game was boring in Destiny. Like, what you were doing was dull, the writing was terrible before they patched it all. The shooting was so compelling that I sunk hours and hours and hours into Destiny because it was just fun to do.
And the multiplayer existed separately and was always good because of that shooting.
But the problem is with Anthem, they basically made it in 6 months. And they fapped around for like years, not really deciding what they were doing, used the wrong engine, were pushed into doing all this stuff by EA. And they had to just chuck it all out, start again, and rush the game through to completion without really knowing what it was in the last 6 months.
Funnily enough, that's what happened to Destiny 1. That shows you why this clear creative vision has never been there, never will be there, and this game should never have existed.
No, it's
Really?
not something. I don't think realistically it's something they massively wanted to make.
No.
And all of those points that we've just been through, Andrew Wilson wrapped up with the pithy statement: "Making fun is hard."
It is hard, which
It
is
is
why
hard.
you need to try hard.
Yeah.
And trying hard isn't just yelling into your intercom about vectors. You know, you don't get to just sit around and dictate what you think what audiences want because you've drawn on a whiteboard. You have to be in there. Like, you just get in there and do the work.
I imagine that there's a world in which Anthem is a single player game.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just a story-led single-player game in which it's basically Mass Effect, but you drive the javelins outside.
If they copied Ghost Recon and not Destiny, it would really work.
But trying to do a full BioWare, very complex. These are all the interpersonal relationships you have to manage. But realistically, you're just going to go out there and shoot stuff and come back and then find more stuff out. Pointless. Even though players aren't that enamored with Anthem, they are enamored with Anthem and will be supporting it going forward. They said, "If we believe that at the very core the world wasn't compelling people, if we believed at the very core that the characters weren't compelling for people, or the javelin suits weren't compelling, or traversing the world and participating in the world wasn't compelling, then provided we hadn't made promises to our players, we might not invest further. IP lives for generations and runs in these 7 to 10 year cycles. So if I think about Anthem on a 7 to 10 year cycle, it may not have had the start that many of us wanted, including our players. I feel that the team is really going to get there with something special and something great because they've demonstrated that they can."
Absolute nothing words again.
When?
Yeah. None of that meant anything.
No.
This is all nonsense. This is all down to the key issues with EA again. You can't sit around in a boardroom and dictate your will upon audiences, particularly the gaming audience, because they're too mobile.
Unless Anthem gets its act together incredibly quickly, those players that have been compelled by the world, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
Because there's so much other stuff to do. Yeah, they might. And that's that, and you're hoping then that they keep hold of that disc or that download. Long enough, and they don't trade it in, so long enough that you can fix the problems that there were in the first place.
This stinks of an Anthem 2, because if you make a sequel, it gets to feel and sound and be marketed like something fresh.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's what I think is going to
Well, the Anthem 2, if I was going to do a sequel to Anthem, I would, as BioWare, attempt to distance myself from EA. And as EA, I would say in the marketing strategy, we need to just make it like this is the game BioWare wanted to make.
Yeah.
And have BioWare lead all the marketing.
Yeah.
Forget EA ever advertising it. Keep EA's name off as much as possible, like ideally hide it on the box. To continue what Andrew Wilson was saying, at E3, lead producer of Anthem, Ben Irving from BioWare, popped up. He said, "Anthem does have a future, a very bright future, we hope." Hope being the operative word. We've learned a lot these last few months. We really want to make the game better. We believe Anthem can be a really amazing game. We know we have some work to do. We just want to work with the community and build it together and make it the game that everyone wants it to be. Well, the game everyone wants it to be is Mass Effect. Just make Mass Effect 3 again, I think.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for watching. Let us know what you think about what Andrew Wilson said about Anthem and which of the two vectors you fall into in the comments down below. Head on over there to watch more awesome ScreenStalker content. I've been Laurie Blake. This has been housemate Simon Longdon, and remember, we're watching.